We're on.
Hi everyone, good evening. We're going to get started. Hi Danny. Good evening everyone. I'm honored to speak tonight on behalf of the Young Israel of Teaneck and on behalf of Rabbi Krohn. Rabbi Krohn unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted to send his warm regards and appreciation for tonight's discussion and event. And he also asked me to convey how proud he is of Dr. Eli Rachlin from our community for the Torah scholarship that you're going to hear about tonight, and for his contributions to the community, including tonight's event. Also want to represent the board of directors as we celebrate this book launch, in which Dr. Rachlin was so involved. Young Israel is honored to host this event because Dr. Rachlin embodies our community's commitment to Torah, to professional and communal engagement, and to the spreading of Torah's wisdom wherever it can be found. Dr. Rachlin's a pediatric dentist by profession. He has a deep passion for learning, and in recent years, he has explored Chabad thought, finding insights that have enriched his perspective. He has collaborated with Rabbi Dalfin, who we're very honored to have as well, an esteemed author and historian who has written extensively on Chabad and its relationship with other Jewish movements. And if those of you who have had a chance to look at the selection outside, you can see there's quite a lot of output that Rabbi Dalfin is responsible for, writing about the different engagements of Chabad with different streams of Jewish thought. Tonight they're going to be speaking about the new book, Chabad in Yeshiva University. The work explores the intersection between the two intellectual traditions, highlighting their shared values, areas of divergence, and historical interactions. And Dr. Rachlin's journey in this book reflects the richness of Torah's 70 faces, demonstrating how continued study can ignite a passion that can revitalize every aspect of our life. His work is a testament to the idea that Torah is vast and multifaceted, offering new paths of understanding that can inspire both personal growth and also communal connection, and also have an influence beyond just the personal. And obviously tonight we see people here who want to learn about this important topic. Through scholarship and dialogue, he and Rabbi Dalfin have fostered a greater appreciation for the intellectual and spiritual contributions of both YU and Chabad, and we are grateful for their contributions, and we look forward to the insights that they'll share with us tonight. So Dr. Rachlin can kick this off.
All right, thank you very much for your kind words. My being here raises an obvious question. There's a book about Chabad and YU. I actually attended neither of them. The only YU I attended was York University, not to be confused with New York University, which is in Toronto. So I wanted to actually just address what is that brings me here, and that's really partly as an introduction to the book and an introduction to really the guest speaker and the focus, and that's Rabbi Dalfin, because those things are intertwined. So a number of years ago, someone who I was very close with became very impacted through Chabad, and I saw that made a big improvement in that person's life, and I thought that partly for academic reasons, it would be good to explore what was these Chabad people, what was it that they really believed. I knew something about Mashiach. I'd been Tzavos Hashem when I was a kid, but I didn't really know much about the depth or kind of what was it that caused them to have this influence on someone that I was and then very close with. So I said, let me try to learn some of it myself, just so I can perhaps exude some of that. But not really thinking that would have any significant impact on me. And I started learning Tanya, first at Chabad.org with the recorded classes of Rabbi Yeshua Gordon of Lesson Memory. And I started to have all kinds of questions, both about some of the material I was learning, some of it I didn't understand, some of it I thought I understood, but didn't understand what I thought were contradictions well enough, didn't understand some of the nuances. And then also questions about Chabad as a movement, sociological, etc. And I was trying to look for someone to speak to about this, to ask my questions to. And one of my thoughts was I wanted to be able to speak to someone who's an insider inside the world of Chabad, but who could also basically, in explaining answering any of my questions, basically give me the real deal. I didn't want a sugar-coated version of anything. And I wanted to make sure I was speaking with someone who could respect my coming from a different perspective and try to answer any questions or concerns they had and explain things to me. So I had already been aware of Rabbi Dalfin from his book a number of years before on the Rav and the Rebbe, which I believe came out in 2016. And I had read, and I read that. Frankly, I'm not even certain I made it all the way through it, but I read quite a bit of it years before, so I knew the name. And I thought maybe this was a person that might be someone who could help me on my own trying to find some answers. So the next thing I did was I purchased a book, which is unfortunately out of print.
It's not out of print.
Oh, I'm sorry, which I thought was out of print. Okay, incorrect. Fine, it's back in print. And now we'll talk about this book instead. But I will actually, for just a minute or two, this book was called Conversations with the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And my first thought was, cool, someone interviewed the Rebbe for 3 hours and put it into a book. Then I realized that wasn't what it was, and apparently no one's actually done that, or no one actually ever did that while the Rebbe was alive or since. What this book actually was interviews conducted by Rabbi Dalfin. Yeah, you caught that, thank you. It was interviews by Rabbi Dalfin with a number of very significant Jewish personalities. Some of them were, for example, Herman Branover. Some of you may know the name. He was a scientist from Russia who became a Chabadnik. But some of the names on this list, Chaim Patak, author of The Chosen, Yitzhak Shamir, Israeli Prime Minister, Rabbi Norman Lamb, of blessed memory, who was obviously one of the main builders of Yeshiva University. And in these interviews, what I saw is someone, Rabbi Dalfin, who was engaging with these different personalities, again, some religious, some not religious, some Lubavitch, most of them not Lubavitch, and talking about various issues of importance to the Jewish community, both religious and otherwise, respectfully, and then putting it in print. For example, in a conversation with Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb, Rabbi Lamb, among other things, one thing that I found interesting was he made reference to the fact, something that I seem to have become already increasingly aware of, that in his view, the only group in Hasidim which was still promoting classical Chasidus, teaching the Torah of the Chabad, the Torah of the Besht, and rather than, as Norman Lamb put it, just saying cute little Vortlach, and was Chabad. And while, of course, I think that's a simplification, there's plenty of great Torah coming out of all streams of Chasidus. I noticed that Norman Lamb shared that observation, but he also shared some observations that were really, frankly, critical of Chabad as a movement. And my point isn't to share those. I guess if you want to find those, you'll have to buy the book. But all kidding aside, my point is to share the fact that what impressed me was that Rabbi Dalfin was having a conversation with Rabbi Lamb about that. And when Rabbi Lamb was critical of Chabad, it's in the book. And he was unafraid of conversation with different perspectives. And that really says a lot about Rabbi Dalfin. And having read this book, I said, you know what, I'm the kind of person, if I feel that there's an expert I want to speak to, I just reach out and speak to them. I think David Schwartz is aware from 2017 when he wanted to figure out a good place to watch the solar eclipse, that I kind of put him in touch with Alex Filipenko, who, right? Who is just the author of the #1 astronomy text, because I had taken a continuing education course, not professional continuing education, but just because I was interested in astronomy. And after taking it, I reached out to Professor Filipenko because I had some questions. And he was surprised and said, no one ever does this. But that's who I am. So then a few months later, he was on one of the world's greatest astronomers was advising the Schwartz family as to the best hotel to stay in to be close to where the eclipse was. Turns out he's also a nice guy, which is also true, of course, of Rabbi Dalfin. So the next step was then I contacted Rabbi Dalfin, and over a period of time, we discussed a lot of things. We discussed, aside from the sociological aspects, of Chabad. Most of the reason I wanted to talk to him about was about both about getting a deeper understanding of Tanya, and also applying it to my own personal life. And he was incredibly helpful with that, and remains so to this day. So with that in mind, sometime later I said to Rabbi Dalfin, I said, I know you write a lot of books. If you need any help with any editing or any projects, I'm here. I'd be happy to extend my procrastination services. I mean, my editing services. And so he had this manuscript that he had on Yeshiva University and Chabad. And what was interesting about it was, to me, was it's not a complete history of all interactions between these two institutions. Rabbi Dalfin is very well known and respected as historian, or some would say historiographer. And I think the main difference between historian and historiographer is that historiographer is a word that historians made up to refer to any historian who's not published in journals, but whose work they use when they write those articles. So just an example as to the esteem with which Rabbi Dalfin's work is known, and his work consists of documenting oral traditions, of interviewing multiple people to find the root of the story as an insider, as someone who knows how to access and tease the truth of various stories, of looking at documents, and some of which are published in this book for the first time, actually. So he's, for example, Jonathan Sarna, who's known essentially as the dean of American Jewish historians, is friends with Rabbi Dalfin. I've seen some of the correspondence between the two of them with Professor Sarna, expressing thanks to Rabbi Dalfin for his contributions and for his works. Last summer, Rabbi Dalfin was invited as a guest scholar, probably I think the first Hasidic guest scholar at the American Jewish Archives in Cincinnati, which I suppose was great both because he got to lecture there as well as conduct research with access to documentation that wasn't available elsewhere. And many figures have really extolled the quality of his work. I know that one other thing I should mention, both relating to the quality of the work as well as this respect for different perspectives. So many of you may know the name Rabbi Aaron Rakefet. I know many of you have been to his shiurim, whether in midrashot, in yeshivas, in Gros Kollel, and Rabbi Rakefet's also known for having written the two-volume work on the Rav, which was actually edited by a cousin of mine, Yosef Epstein. But in any case, Rabbi Rakefet and Rabbi Dalfin are very good friends. I think you met in 2017 or 2018. And they're very good friends. In fact, there's numerous videos online of Rabbi Dalfin interviewing Rabbi Rakefet. And while they often have obviously differing perspectives, Rabbi Rakefet is not only a fan of Rabbi Dalfin's, but also a big fan of this book. Now, what I feel I added to it is that Rabbi Dalfin had prepared a manuscript, and I felt that in a lot of areas, different things resonate differently with different people, especially different people, different backgrounds, different experiences. And I found that certain things that resonated much more strongly with someone with more of a modern Orthodox background. I chose to put some more extra emphasis on there and kind of flesh out some of those areas. Some of the areas about attitudes about science and secular education, I feel like I fleshed out some of those areas. And one of the interesting things, again, in that process was that there were frequently times where we went back and forth, had discussions, and Rabbi Dalfin didn't always agree, actually, even with some of what ended up in the book. But which might make you wonder why he put his name on it. But the answer is because he said, I'm not sure if I agree 100%, but that's a valid point of view. That's a good perspective. It should be in there. Don't make sure you also put the other perspective in as well, which is some of what we really attempted to do in working together. And it was really a great collaboration and a testament to who Rabbi Dalfin is. I just want to share one story that is told over in the book, and the book does start because, of course, all books kind of need a good hook, right? The book starts with two institutions that both started in the late 1890s. Now, Chabad, of course, dates back to much earlier than that, more than a century earlier than that. But Yeshiva Tomchei Tmimim, which was the first Chabad yeshiva, was established in the late 1890s, at right around the exact same time that on the Lower East Side, the precursor to Yeshiva University was being established. So the first portion of the book discusses some of the travails of yeshivas at that time, both in Europe as well as in the United States. Just for a quick taste of that, for example, both in Yeshivas Rabbeinu Yitzhak Elchanan in New York and across the ocean in Radin, right around the same time, both yeshivas engaged in strikes for different reasons. Interestingly, the main reason for the strike at Yeshiva University, which I believe was in 1908, was because the students were upset about the quality of the food and the stipends, and
Nothing changed.
Yeah, exactly. And we were there earlier today. The commentator, the number one story was that students complaining about the fact that the health department gave the cafeteria an A, and being urged to flood the health department with complaints. But there was an actual strike, and resulting in the yeshiva actually closing down. And around the same time, 1903, in the same era, these strikes were going all through yeshivas because the winds of change were really going through Jewry at the time. 1903, right around the time of the Rav's birth, in Radin, the strike was because the yeshiva students felt that Gemara wasn't stimulating enough. They didn't like the way it was being taught. They heard of this new way that some yeshivas were studying Gemara, and that was the way of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik. And they felt that they were being hampered in the scientific age of this old school type of learning Gemara, and they went on strike in the Chafetz Chaim's yeshiva, which is the actual reason, and Rabbi Dalfin has documentation for that in the book. It's the actual reason that the Chafetz Chaim got a new Rosh Yeshiva, got Rav Naftali Trupp, who some of you may know that name. Rav Naftali Trupp was hired to be the new Rosh Yeshiva in the Chafetz Chaim's yeshiva in 1903 because he was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, in order to bring the Brisker method to that yeshiva. So the first chapter covers a lot of those strikes, even to the point of student activities at YU over the closing of MTA, over the potential closing of Revel. Trying to bring that chapter from the early era of the institutions all the way forward to the 20th century. And then the book goes into the study of Chasidus at Yeshiva University, and to the extent that it occurred, often in clandestine settings, including a clandestine class of which Rav Aaron Rakefet was part. Well, when he was part of it, it wasn't clandestine. Then, as you can find in the footnotes, one of the Rosh Yeshiva shut down the class after Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik said that the class should continue, and the Tanya class went back to the dormitory. So all these things are detailed in the book, but a major focus of the book is the philosophies of Chabad as they developed really in the mid-20th century, and the philosophy of Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, because both in Chabad, the Lubavitch Rebbe, and in Yeshiva University, Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, these were, of course, the two seminal figures who shaped the philosophy and what these two institutions accomplished. Of course, Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik took over in 1941, but he was really reached his powers in the 50s and 60s when he really guided Yeshiva University. And that's, of course, with all deference to both Samuel Belkin, Bernard Revel, and Norman Lamb, all who, of course, are also known as in the administrative side, really guiding Yeshiva University. So the quick story that I did want to just share from the book was the following. It occurs actually, it was with the Soloveitchik family, but it occurs with Chaim Soloveitchik in 1901, I believe, right before the Rav's birth. And at the time, Chaim Soloveitchik was the Rav in Brisk, of course, and he had a large community of Chabadniks in the town. Now, for those who think I might be getting confused with Moshe Soloveitchik, I'm not. I know what Moshe Soloveitchik was the Rav in Chaslovich, when the Rav grew up, a town which was known for having a significant Chabad community. But Rav Chaim Soloveitchik was the rabbi in Brisk, and the Chabad community had a problem they wanted his help with. The problem was the following. Yotes Kislev, which is, as many people know, a huge holiday in Chabad circles. It celebrates the Alter Rebbe being released from prison. Yotes Kislev, that year, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and by Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, was not going to be in Lubavitch that year. So he sent a letter and a proclamation to be read in Lubavitch communities. The problem was that the letter was not received in Brisk until after they'd celebrated Yotes Kislev. And the Hasidim came to Rav Chaim Brisker with the following question. They said, we received this letter from the then Lubavitch Rebbe, and it says in the letter that Yotes Kislev should from now on be celebrated not just as a great day because Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi was let out of prison, but it should be treated as Rosh Hashanah for Chasidus. Adding another Rosh Hashanah to our calendar, of which, according to the Mishnah, there are already 4, and adding another Rosh Hashanah. So they said to Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, we didn't know that we were supposed to celebrate it as Rosh Hashanah. And the amazing thing is that Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, who clearly on Yotes Kislev that year and every other year said Tachnun, and had nothing to do with any celebrations, told them that they'd celebrated Yotes Kislev with the wrong kavanah. And as such, they had no choice, but they would have to celebrate Yotes Kislev again, because they had done the mitzvah incorrectly. Some Hasidim suggested, can we do this on Purim Katan? Now that following Purim, there was 2 Adars. Purim Katan is the first, Purim Katan is Yud Daled Adar in Adar Rishon. So they said, and I don't know whether perhaps the minhag was then not to work on Purim Katan. They said, can we do this on Purim Katan and celebrate it on that day? And he told them no, because Ein Arvin Simcha B'Simcha. Purim Katan is the day of Simcha. Yotes Kislev is too big a Simcha to be held on Purim Katan. And so he directed them to pick another day to celebrate Yotes Kislev. And what was striking about this story, to me, is that, as I said, Rav Chaim Soloveitchik had nothing to do with Yotes Kislev, but he had, and most people when they think of Rav Chaim Soloveitchik would think that someone was very anti-Hasidim. Although again, as the book demonstrates, he had later had actually some earlier and some later had a lot of dealings with the Lubavitch Rebbe, with the fifth Lubavitch Rebbe. But in fact, he had the spiritual sensitivity that even though there was this movement that he had really no part of, other than the fact that he was the Rav of their town, he respected their spiritual, the way they expressed their spirituality, even though it was different than his, and he was ruling with them at the intersection of where their practices were and halacha, even though it was something that he really didn't relate to personally. And so I feel that spirit of respecting other modes of spirituality, this ended up very much trickling down to Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, where even though of course he was a misnaged, he also publicly joked that he was a clandestine Chabadnik, because he later came to embrace many aspects of Chabad philosophy. With that in mind, I want to now give the floor to Rabbi Dalfin, who will take it from here.
Thank you, Rabbi Yeshikaya. Could you bring me the book that's from the outside? Sure. So good evening to everybody. I'm not going to give you drushes and lectures. This is a book launch. So I'm just going to share Fabring with you. You know what a Fabringen is? 30 years ago, I interviewed Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb at Yeshiva University for the book Ellie mentioned, Conversations with the Rebbe. And I'll never forget what he told me, almost as an opening line. He said, we and Chabad, 30 years ago, 1995, we and Chabad are the closest thing. That's what he said to me. And then he went on to speak about the book that he wrote, I think for his PhD, on the Nefesh HaChaim of Chaim Volozhiner, Torah Lishma. And we spoke about that. And he spoke about, as Ellie mentioned, some criticism he had in Springfield, where he was a rabbi and Chabad came into town. Whatever, it's all there. As he said, you could read it. And for 30 years, I was thinking about this. You know, did he say it to me just to make me feel good? You know, I was a much younger man, right? And he was Dr. Lamb, Rabbi Dr. Lamb, bringing $60 million a year or more into the yeshiva. I mean, he built an empire. He really built an empire. You know, the Rav is the Rav, but you need Kesef Minoan, the Gemara says, right? Right? What do they say? Geld, a bissel Yiddish. Geld is gematria blotter, right? The numerical equivalent of geld is blotter. But we need this blotter. Blotter is dirt, schmutz. We need the schmutz. We need this blotter. Without the money, it's a gate dish. It don't go. So I'm sitting there and, so I'm thinking about it. What did he really want? What did he really say? It took me 30 years kind of to put it together. So in 2016, I published this book. It's a 400-page book, 550 or so footnotes called Rav and Rebbe. It went through 3 printings. We're out of print, and a gentleman here came here tonight to buy it. I said, I can't sell you this copy. It's my only copy left. With Hashem's help, we'll find sponsors, and we will reprint it. But for right now, this book's not available. However, when I printed this 2016, the focus was, as the cover, the Rav and the Rebbe. And Rabbi Rekefet was very helpful to me, in publicizing it and endorsing it. And especially here in Teaneck, I must tell you, I sold the most copies right here. At the store, the Judaica store, I think we're Aiden. There was someone named Aiden, who the former owners. I mean, I had to bring in boxes and boxes. They sold a tremendous amount. Reuven. So, what is it? What is it? What is this Chabad and what is YU Yeshiva University? So, let me digress for a moment and say it's really Dr. Rachlin. It's Eli Rachlin. Eli Rachlin is a modern man, a learned man, a Talmud Chochem, a scholar, a professional dentist. Really, he's a successful man, and he's, worked hard to get where he is. And he decides not only to look at Chabad and look at Chasidus, but really to go deep into it. And this is a very important point. I'm sure everyone here in the room has had exposure with Chabad. The MC told me, he's involved with Chabad rabbi in South Dakota, I think. I'm sure some of you must have even children or grandchildren or cousins or relatives. We spoke today at Yeshiva, at the sale, Ellie and I. And someone asked the question, and I'll ask you the question. A student, he said, why is it, and I don't know his background, I don't know what's going on. He said, why is it that he feels sometimes at the yeshiva something, at Yeshiva University, he says, there's an ambivalence to Chabad. He asked me why. 2025. Not 1940, not 1950, not 1960. Today. And I said, I think, it's not because of the Torah of Chabad, the Balatanya's Torah, the Rebbe's Torah. It's not because of their teachings. I think it has to do with the sociological issue. You know, what Rabbi Dr. Lamb said about the rabbi who came, the Chabadnik who came to Springfield when he was rabbi in the shul, you have the same issues. And it's not just Chabad, it's in many communities. Imagine someone parks himself next to your shul here and opens up another young Israel. You're not going to be happy. I can suffer from tar b'chochma, you know, the more the merrier. But, you know, we're people, my congregant, my dollar, my balabas, that's the way it is. And one needs to, if they're interested, if they want to see the value in any group and society, you need to study their inside kishkis. What's the inside kishkis? The Torah and philosophy of that particular movement and group. And for the last many years, I've dedicated myself to this analysis. Out in the hallway, you'll see a slew of books that I've written, many of which are Chabad and Tells, Chabad and Ponovich, Chabad and Torah V'das, right? To show and present to everyone, both on a platter, and you, the reader, decide what you want to do with it. I try very hard, I'm not perfect, I try very hard to be as objective as possible. It's impossible to be completely honest because I'm a Chabadnik, I'm a Lubavitcher, right? By having Dr. Rachlin assist me in this project, he brought and took my manuscript and brought a lot of that there to it. So Chabad and Yeshiva University gives the reader a more balanced approach to a topic. And what is that topic? The topic is the synthesis of two great giants and two great movements and institutions, how they can work together. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in one thing. Klal Yisrael, Avas Yisrael, working together. What color yarmulke, beard, no beard, it's irrelevant. Anyone could dress the way you want and wear, but understandably, come into a shul, you dress like a mensch. But the Rebbe, I said this earlier, I'll make it very brief. In 1984, my wife sitting in the back, we were sent by the Rebbe to Marin County, California. Has anyone been, raise your hand, to Marin County, California? You know what Marin County, California is? Gila, I think, is from Santa Rosa. Marin County, California was depicted in a documentary in the 1970s as the hot tub capital of the United States, with smoking the marijuana dope in your hot tub. And we'll leave it at that, and worse, right? Okay. That's Marin County. Someone comes to me and says, Rabbi, tefillin, Shabbos, mitzvahs, I'm from New York. Meanwhile, he has his nice long ponytail, and he's raising pigs in his backyard in an upper affluent area in Marin County. So the Rebbe sent us as young 20-year-olds to go out to Marin County as his shluchim. We built a mikveh, we built a shul, we built a yeshiva and a bookstore. Baruch Hashem. 19,000 Jews according to the Federation list. We come to the fair for the Jewish community in the summer of, I think, August of 84, because we left in July of 84. And I say, how am I going to get the message out that we're in town? One Reform synagogue, shul, one conservative, I think one Reconstructionist group, and now Chabad. So I had come across a flyer that a friend of mine, Rabbi Shimon from Chicago, had printed. It had his picture. And next to it, it said like this: I am not Reform, I am not conservative, I'm not Orthodox, I am a Jew. This is the philosophy of Chabad. A Jew is a Jew, and the rest, right? And I said, I'm going to put my picture instead of Shimon's picture and send out a beautiful card to 5,000 people. 5,000 people is probably, 1,900 homes, whatever the case. But I have a boss. Someone sent me to Marin County, it's the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So I took the card and I sent it in, faxed it in, not, expecting him to respond and not asking for permission, but just notifying Derech Eretz. He's my boss. A few hours later, Rabbi Klein Shalom, the Rebbe's secretary, one of his secretaries, calls me and says, the Rebbe wrote comments on your flyer. I said, what? Comments on my flyer? And briefly, what the Rebbe said was like this: your message is that Chabad is about Avos Yisrael and we're all one. Yet, what do you say? I am not this, I am not that, I'm not this. By saying I am not, you're saying there is 3 divisions, and there aren't. A Jew is a Jew. The fact that you belong to a Reform synagogue, a Reform temple, a conservative synagogue, an Orthodox shul, okay, that's where you daven. That's where you belong. That's where you socialize. But a Yid is one Yid. We're all one Jew. And the Rebbe ended with the words, Hashem Atov Yechaper. It's heavy. May the good God forgive you. This was my introduction out to Marin County, August 1985. And I took the 5,000 and I dumped them into my garbage can in the office, and I never sent them out. There was more details in the answer, but I'm just going to leave it at that. So, both Rabbi Soloveitchik, the Rav, and the Rebbe were the driving force of the movements. Okay, I know it's 30 plus years later. Both the Rebbe passed away in 1993. The Rebbe passed away in 1994. It's 30 years later, right? I can tell you, as a Lubavitcher, as a Chabadnik, that the movement not only continues with another Chabad house, which you all know about, the learning of the Torah, the learning of the Chasidus, is active. It's alive today. I was today at the sale, at the YU sale, and I saw a whole shelf full of the Rav's Forum, redone, and with this commentary, this rabbi, and this scholar. I would hope, I'm not in the yeshiva, I would hope that today's students cherish and value the Rav's Torah. This was a genius. I've studied Rabbi Aaron Kotler, and I've studied Rabbi Ruderman, and I studied Rabbi Hutner. They're all in my books. And I studied Shlomo Karlbach. I studied them all from inside out with interviewing all kinds of people. People who already gone on to Olam HaEmes. People who knew those people personally. And Baruch Hashem, another thing I do, I'm a biographer, and I write people's oral history, which, as an aside, if you haven't done that, for your parents, for yourself, please do it. Everyone has a story here. Get your story down in writing. Don't depend on your kid and your grandkid, because it ain't going to happen. Okay? Make sure you do it. It's very, very important for Doros to have your story told. I wrote my father's biography. He's 87. This is Romania. He's a survivor from Romania. I sat him down, got the information, put it in writing, and put out a book. Anyway, so the Rav, Rabbi Soloveitchik, his genius insights into Torah are astonishing. And I must say, as a Lubavitcher Bocher student, I was sheltered. Like most, everyone in my community as students, and I think today, for sure, everyone is in their little corner, doesn't know what the other one. So I started to study him, listen to shiurim, listen to tapes. Wow. Such Torah, such wisdom. I'm sure some of you attended his yahrzeit share, right? 4 or 5 hours. 3 hours of halacha, 3 hours of agoda. I've spoken to Talmidei Chachamim, and I asked them, what did you think of the Rav's yahrzeit share? And I'm talking about massive Talmidei Chachamim, massive, who know Shas, and understand Shas. They said, Ein kamohu. Ein kamohu. And yet this person, unfortunately, was ostracized by the right wing, what they call Orthodox, which I don't like using those terms, as I said a moment ago, right? Why? Because he didn't exactly toe their line. They're Agudas, he's Mizrahi. You all, most of you I'm sure know what I'm talking about. And I'm not here to really delve into that. I did in my books. I did, because this needs to be understood. But not now. So the Rav teaches this brilliant Torah. Then I find, and I hear him make statements about Chasidus. I said, wow, since when did Rabbi Soloveitchik study Chasidus? I know he's a genius, but you have to learn it. He's a brisker, a litvak, or as he would say himself, and Eli quoted before, I'm a misnagid from the house of Brisk. He was a proud misnagid. Halavai, all misnagdim should be like him. There are no misnagdim today anyway. There's litvaks, but not misnagdim. Anyway. And I start listening to him explaining things on Rotzon, Bal HaRotzon, God, the emanator, the will of God. And I learned these things, and I spent hours and days and months thinking about these things in Chasidus. And Rabbi Soloveitchik, he's right there. In other words, you can be a genius, but if you didn't learn the text, you can't make it up. And he's quoting the Mittler Rebbe, not just the Alter Rebbe, the son of the Alter Rebbe. Some very deep ideas. And then in 1976, when they wanted him to go to Grus Kol, some wanted, and he was going to take 50 or to 100 students with him. He wrote the curriculum. You know what the curriculum said, besides learning Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, and Marsha, and everything else? 45 minutes twice a week to learn Tanya. Rabbi Soloveitchik wanted that. It never happened for various reasons, which is a different story, but it never happened. Rabbi Rakefet knows this. And Rabbi Rakefet has been on my tail for years to get Yeshiva University to have as an official learning seder in the curriculum Chasidus. He didn't say Chabad Chasidus. It could be Nesiv Shalom. It could be Sfas Emes. But Chasidus hasn't happened yet. The closest we got was when they hired in 2014 Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, and I interviewed him, and it's in the book. Some very, very, in my books, you generally should know, all the secrets are in the footnotes. So if you want to know the secrets, you must read the footnotes. Anyway, so he lasted till 2020, 1920, when the COVID hit, He got busy, and there are rabbis who are teaching, but the point is that when you allow yourself, as Eli said before, to be open to other strands and other philosophies in Torah, and I say this to my own Lubavitchers, are you studying seriously Reb Chaim? How can you learn Rambam without Reb Chaim? Rabbi Shem Tov, Rabbi Avram Shem Tov of Philadelphia, he told me that when he went to see the Rav, he was the one who invited the Rav to come to the 1985 Farbrengen, which I was there. This Motzah Shabbos will be 40 years, 1980, Motzoi Shabbos Yud Shvat, the previous Rebbe's yard site. The Rav came to Farbrengen, I think it was a Monday night. It was a scene to be seen. It was awesome. This picture that I put on the cover, the background is a Farbrengen, if you look carefully. That's the 1980 Farbrengen. And this is the picture of how they both, when they both saw each other, when the Rebbe came in, and the Rebbe already had come in a few minutes before, standing there. This is the picture. It was, the love was palpable. Europe, Berlin, Reb Chaim, the Alter Rebbe, the Gra, was palpable. I'm telling you, 5,000 people were in that room. We were standing in awe. Like Maimon Har Sinai. We talk about Maimon Har Sinai. I'm telling you, from my perspective, that was Maimon Har Sinai. Anyway, so the synthesis of Torah that the Rebbe and the Rav bring to the Jewish world are very important to continue learning and to be open to learning as a derech and avodas Hashem, a way in serving God today, not 30 years ago, today. So I'll give you just one insight. The Alter Rebbe in chapter 26, from 26 to 34, it's called the psychological part of Tanya. I have outside a book called Tanya Mental Health. You know, what's the buzzword today? Mental health. Mental health. We're all Meshuggah. Mental health, right? You don't have to be Meshuggah. Everyone has mental health. So I said, let's look at Tanya and see what does Tanya say about mental health. So I took one idea, kind of per chapter, as a tidbit from the chapter to look at a mental health issue. Love, fear, friendliness, loneliness, schizophrenia, whatever different things you'll see if you're interested. And the chapters that deal with those things is 26 to 34. Now chapter 26 begins with the concept that everything is good. There's no bad coming from Hashem. Everyone, this is the big question. Just had an October 7th. What's going on? Holocaust, Spanish Inquisition, a child that's born that's not well. On and on, I don't have to tell you. So we have plenty of sorrows, plenty of problems. Ein ra yored mima'ala. There's no evil coming from heaven. It's all good. Really. It's all good. And the Baal Tanya addresses this in chapter 26, which by the way equals numerical value of Yud Kei Vav Kei equals 26, just as an aside. He doesn't say it. Anyway, and he explains, what I want to get at is when he starts speaking about the issues of dealing with problems, physical, material problems, he quotes part of a pasuk, a verse, and he says, Eitza ha'yeutza, the advice given for this is ... to realize it comes from a higher place. Okay. He brings a Kabbalah, he brings a pasuk, okay. The bottom of the page, when he says, then what about issues that you have which come from spiritual maladies? Inappropriate thoughts, depression in prayer, things that are more on the spiritual spectrum that disturb your prayer, your davening, and your learning. There he quotes, this is his language, Tzarich loshus eitzos benafsho. Take a look later, you'll see. The bottom of chapter 26 in the first column, first page, second page actually. He says there, you have to find advice. Why does he change the language? For when it comes to the gashmis, the material problems, he says ve'etza ha'yeutza, the advices. And when it comes to the spiritual problems, he says tzarich loshus eitzos benafsho. You have to struggle to find an answer, a solution for your problem. So I heard from my teacher, Rabbi Yoel Kahn, that what the Alter Rebbe is insinuating over here is that Ruchnius should bother you more than Gashmius. You understand? It's a heavy job. But that's what he's saying. He's saying that Gashmias, the material, money and health and children, you have to find a solution. But what you really have to find a solution for is if your davening is not proper, if your learning is not proper, if your Abbas Yisrael is not proper, there you have to really struggle to find advice. This is just one example out of thousands of examples that are in this Tanya, that the Rav said that the yeshiva should learn at the Grus Kollel in 1976, because he saw and he knew and he learned that this will bring and add chizuk to the yeshiva university world, to the modern Orthodox world. There's no question about it. And when they came to him, Eli mentioned that they tried stopping the Tanya Shir. You know what the Rav said? Als medmen lernen. Everything you're allowed to learn. Aber nicht das, but not Tanya. So, this misnagid, this brisker misnagid, he was pro-Tanya. Nu, manane basrei, what shall we say today? And this idea of the Rav's Torah, as he explains so many concepts in Torah with the insights of Chabad, and this adds one more point. Was the Rav, the question's like this, was the Rav more intellectual or more emotional? This is a big discussion. And most people, at least most of what's written, of course, intellectual, the greatest intellect. The Rav said, and I spoke to Talmidim, and he said it, and his sister even, I think, writes it, Shulamis Meiselman. He says, my students took my cup, my head. They didn't take my heart. And I tried very hard to get them to take my heart, and they didn't take my heart. The Rav had a father at Boisha, and a mother in Pesha, right? Also, so you have to study who the parents are. You want to understand the person, you have to look at the parents. Let's say Shlomo Karlbach, Rabbi Karlbach. Shlomo Karlbach, right? If you understand Shlomo's parents, you understand him. If you don't understand his parents, I promise you don't know him. You think you know him, you don't. You have to study the person's parents. And once you see the parents, the way they were raised, then you can have more of an insight. What's going on, the psychology in their thinking, in their youth, and as they grow. The Rav, as Dr. Rachlin mentioned, had a Chasidus Melamed. Baruch Yankiv Riesberg, he would say. He says he was a Karev of the Alter Rebbe. And by the way, the Yeshiva sent two Talmidim, two students in 1968 to Moscow. They were doing Kiruv. I spoke to one of them. I forget now the name. And he said that they saw someone, and he went over and said, Shalom Aleichem. And he asks them, do you know Harav Soloveitchik, Rabbi Yashaber, whatever, so they say, he's our Rebbe. So they say, he says, send him my regards. So they say, and who are you? Just tell him, Baruch Yankiv. When they came back, he said he'll know already. When he came back, they told him, he mamish almost collapsed. He didn't believe that he was still alive. This was his Melamed from 1913, who was already a middle-aged person in Chaslavich. And the Rav spoke always about this Melamed, right? Ula Yeshleimer, Eli, you like a deep word. Ula Yeshleimer, possibly, the Rav said he's a Melamed. Was bin ich? Come a Melamed. I'm just a Melamed. Ula Yeshleimer, he's talking about the Melamed within him that he got from Baruch Yankiv Riesberg, his Melamed. So, he talks about this Melamed with such admiration. And what does he speak about this Melamed? that he saw that this Melamed was living Yiddishkeit, was living Torah. A story with the Chofetz Chaim. You know who I heard the story from? Rabbi Beryl Wine. Rabbi Beryl Wine. Just said the story that I heard just now. And it's a very sharp story, so you know what I'm going to say. So please, Rabbi Wine said it, not Chaim Dalfin. There's one Erev Yom Kippur, I think. Erev Yom Kippur, Erev Tisha B'Av, I forget now. He was in Shul. Chofetz Chaim. The Heilige Chofetz Chaim, the Tzaddik. Shmiras HaLoshen. Mishnah Brura. And he goes, he makes, after davening, he makes a bang. He wants to say, he says something. He says, I got noticed, there's a shul, there's a town near us. The mikveh isn't good. He's talking about mikvahs noshim, for women. We have to be masakin the mikveh. We have to fix the mikveh right away. Please. It's erev. Somehow has to be done. He sits back down, wraps up his tefillin. A bacher comes over to him, a Litvish bacher, and he says, can I ask the Rebbe, the Rav, Rosh Yeshiva? He wasn't Rosh Yeshiva, it was Rabbi Naftali Trop, but he says, can I ask Pshat in the Gemara Tais? He says, sure. He asks him, he tells him Pshat. Afterwards, after he tells him, the Chofetz Chaim says to the bacher, did you hear what I said a few minutes ago? He said, yes, Rebbe. He says, are you ready to go to the town? Oh, he wanted someone to go for Yom Kippur to the shul and to be ma'ir people to, make the mikveh kosher and all that. So he says, are you ready to? He says, Rebbe, how can I go? How can I leave Rabin? It's Yom Kippur. Who am I? What am I? And the Chofetz Chaim, this is Rabbi Wein says, Chofetz Chaim turned and he said, Eva, spit on the floor with your whole taisvis is Verta Shpai. Chofetz Chaim said that. Not the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Not the Rav. The Chofetz Chaim said that. The Tzaddik, the Chofetz Chaim. What is your taisvis worth if you're not willing to sacrifice for another Yid to build a mikveh, to help in a mikveh, and to go away from your comfort zone for Yom Kippur? The Rav ended it with these type of individuals. And we today need to realize that and to understand it and to live with it. The book, this book in particular, the Chabad University, with Dr. Rachlin's tremendous editing and much more, conveys this nakuda, this point. And I conclude with, I hope, the Rav is not here, you said Rabbi Krohn is out of town. I really, I'm a straight shooter. If you don't invite me again, so be it. There has to be a shir in Chasidus in this shul. That's right. And Rabbi Krohn, Rabbi Eli told me you guys went to the oil recently, right? You don't got to be a Lubavitcher. Start a shir Chasidus. If you can't get someone local, I'll come from Borough Park. I live in Borough Park. There should be once a week, an hour, once a week, a shir Chasidus. Some men, some women, whatever, this, that, you'll figure out all the religious issues. Your rabbi and you guys will decide how you want to set it up. But really, and if we could make more shiurim and chassidus in young Israel shuls, in modern Orthodox shuls, in all kinds of shuls, I think the Rav would be, I know the Rav would be very, very happy, and the Rebbe surely would be happy. And this will bring to each and every one of you here taisvis bracha, tremendous more brachas in your personal life. And as Eli said, when you get to know a Lubavitcher from the inside, who knows the inside, and you get to know, and I don't mean only myself, but there are some like that, they're still left. They're not a relic in a museum. And you open yourself up, you'll enrich your life. So the Abel should help that, I hope that this will be done somehow, and I understand that the Rav here is going to be making Aliyah in 5 years and all that. Well, I have a koilel in Bet Shemesh. So this Lubavitcher here has a koilel in Bet Shemesh that I started in 2017. I'm teaching my Talmidim today online, and I have someone teaching Rambam and Gemara in Bet Shemesh. So Baruch Hashem, we participate, and we do hope, with Hashem's help, to be able to be in Eretz Yisrael, to teach Torah in Eretz Yisrael, okay? And by the way, I don't know if your rabbi told you or if you know, the Rav wasn't the greatest proponent of making Aliyah. Just for the record, the Rebbe wasn't either. But the Rav, like the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but the Rav, and I think his son, Chaim Soloveitchik, just spoke, Dr. Bashenkovich just interviewed him on his podcast, and he says it. It's very interesting to listen to. He says it about his father. But that's not the point. And Rabbi Riskin, of course, he tells over, I think I have it in the book, The Rav and the Rebbe, his story, how he came to the Rav and he said he wants a bracha to go to Eretz Yisrael, and Rabbi Riskin said, and the Rav said, what? But that's not the point. The point is that Yidden want to go to Eretz Yisrael to do mitzvahs and Torah and kol hakavod. It's a different time. I'm not going to go into it. It's a different time. Name should help that we should all be zeicha to have the Geula Shlema, the real Geula Shlema, not fake Geula Shlema, the real Geula Shlema, the real true redemption through Mashiach Tzidkenu. And I'll turn back the floor now. You don't want to speak anymore, so we'll take some questions and answers now. Okay? Questions, comments. Don't be bashful, please. No one's going to speak.
Question?
Yes, please.
First of all, I'd like to say I've started reading the book and it's fantastic.
What is your name, sir?
I'm not going to say.
Okay.
To be honest. But
Okay.
I also am the poster child of the beneficiary of Chabad because I travel all over the world and I'm just in awe of Chabad. I'm talking about Asia, Europe, here, and what's done. If you know Benny Zippel and Utah, and the things that are just done. I'm in such awe. But I'm really a closet sociologist, and I'm fascinated by a comment you made that these religious, it's not so much religious, we're all, Chabad preachers, we're all